So over the next 3 videos, we're going to be doing a basic assessment of our data using R. And what you'll find different than our data wrangling is that we don't have a plan that we're executing to do our assessment. We're really investigating the data, and this is something that is just unfolds before you. So as you discover new insights of the data, that's going to cause you to ask more questions and take your investigation in a different way. So data assessment's not something that you plan out, it's really something that unfolds, and you really have to find yourself asking a lot of questions. So over these next 3 videos, you'll see that, well, first of all, you'll see that I'm going to be using some libraries, and this is something different than we've seen in the past. This is some additional functionality that we need to have R use that's not part of the base R package. So that's something that that's going to be something that we haven't seen before. And also just keep in mind that this is one way to do the assessment. There's a lot of different techniques for using R that I could be using, and this is the method I chose. There could be some things that are more efficient. And so, but this is one way to do it, and something that you can consider as you do your own data assessment. So with our data sufficiently wrangled, now we're going to begin to assess the data, to take a look at our data to better understand it before we do our analysis. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an R script to execute a series of commands to help us look at the data. And now this script we're looking at this after the assessment was done. So really what you would be doing would be executing a series of R commands as you study the data, as you ask new questions, you're going to investigate different areas. This is nothing that you would script out ahead of time. So what we're seeing is the resulting script of my analysis of this data. So that's what you see up here is the R script here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to set up the environment. We're going to load a series of libraries because there's additional functions that I need to use that are outside of the base R. But unfortunately, this is a good example of what we don't want to do. I'm going to be loading more libraries than what I needed. And this is just because as things evolved, I added libraries, but may or may not actually be using the functionality in those libraries. I should have had better management of that. But as you can see, there's 5 different libraries I plan to load, and I'm putting comments next to each one so that I'm able to understand why I'm loading that library. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is next to each one, we will hit Control Enter, and then execute this to load each of these libraries. There we go. So now our libraries are loaded and we're ready to go. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to take a look at all the column names that I'm using in my data frame. So we're going to just look at the column names of our data frame called survey data. So Control Enter, and we can see that we have these are the column names that we have created, and this is what we would expect to see based off of where we ended up after our data wrangling. So these are the different columns that are in our data frame that we're going to want to better understand. So next what we're going to do is we're going to run some descriptive statistics. So I'm going to scroll up here. So we're going to simply do some descriptive statistics to be able to get a kind of a better understanding on some of our numeric values. So we're going to run descriptive statistics on the year, the date open, date submitted, and response choice. Then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to display the ranges that we have for a series of our columns that you see over here. So, and you can see the command that we do. So rather than having to do a descriptive statistic for the mean or the max or the min, all of this can be captured as part of a single command. And this command is summary. In this case, the survey data, the year column could be interpreted as a text. So what we're doing is we're converting it to numeric first and then doing a summary of that. Whereas the rest these are already interpreted as numeric, and so we don't need to do a conversion. So when I hit Control Enter, we can see down here that we get the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the mean, the third quartile, and the max. So that's what we get automatically just with that summary command. And so we continue that on, Control Enter for the date open, the date submitted, and the response choice. And so you can see with our response choice, one thing that we find very interesting is that it's unusual that we're doing this form of descriptive statistics on what really is a ordinal data. It's a type of categorical data. But we're going to treat this like it's numeric, just so that we can see kind of where the data falls. So we can see that the mean is all the way up at 4.2. So we're seeing that the distribution of the survey responses really are leaning towards the strongly agree side. And actually the median value is 5. So this indicates that a lot of our data is going to be very high in the rankings, in the Likert rankings of strongly agree. So that's a very important point that we can capture as part of looking at this data, and probably the most important part that we're looking at when we do these descriptive statistics. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the range for our qualitative columns. So we're using the unique function to be able to find unique values of the term name that's part of our survey data frame. So I want to hit enter, control enter. We execute that, and we see all the different unique values that are associated with that column. And from there, I can take a look at to identify the smallest and the largest, or the range of values that are included in that column. And we can execute this for each of these columns here, so we can understand the data that we're working with. In that case, the question ID, that's a list of all the different question IDs we have. So that's not a small number, but we can see that we can then see the different IDs that we're going to be working with, that we're going to be trying to figure out which questions will be relevant to our study. Question category, and our campus is right here. And we can see that we have main and online. Those are the two that we would expect. Our response descriptions, we can see strongly agree, strongly disagree, neutral, disagree, agree. And then the two kind of outliers, the 3 to 5 hours and 6 to 9 hours, those are responses that we wouldn't expect as part of our Likert style questions. So those must be different forms of questions that happen to be in our data. So looking at this, we can see the data is what we would expect. The next step that we're going to want to do is to get a better feeling for the data by looking at a series of bar plots. But for now, we did a cursory review of our data by executing some descriptive statistics and looking at the unique values of our qualitative or categorical data.